let's just start out by doing the Pledge of Allegiance. Everyone wants to stand? Over there. Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay. I'm just so glad to see so many smiling faces this morning. I'm sure it must be the donuts. That's what David always says. I do want to just go through what the procedure is today. First of all, will everyone please mute their cell phones. We've had some previous sessions where cell phones have been interrupted. Today we have the person you've seen here a couple of times before, David Bernstein, our attorney, who works for the co-op in this interaction, and he will be introducing our speaker. I want people to understand the procedure today. The CPA tax accountant, Judd Baggett, will be doing a short presentation, and that will be followed by questions. We're going to have to insist today one question per person. There's so many people here, we cannot do repeat questions today. We will have people come up to the speaker, up to the microphone, give their name and lot number and ask their question. Okay? And I'm, first of all, just going to let, are you on speaker there? Okay, here. No, we're going to let Natalie go that far first.
Dans le fond, on vous présente le comptable ici. Il va faire une courte présentation. Ça va être suivi par une période de questions-réponses. La présentation qu'il va faire, en gros, vous l'avez déjà par écrit. Donc, on ne va pas traduire cette partie-là. On va traduire les questions-réponses par la suite. La procédure est simple. On s'avance comme à l'habitude. On pose une question. Avec la quantité de gens qu'il y a ici aujourd'hui, on va limiter à une question par personne. Merci.
Good morning. Thank you all for coming this morning. We had to turn away people this morning. It's good that you're here. You're going to get a very good and informative workshop this morning from Judd Baggett of the Baggett Rudiman CPA firm here in Florida. Judd is the senior partner, founding partner of that firm. Judd comes to you with a wealth of experience representing homeowners associations and specifically cooperative resident-owned mobile home parks in Florida. It is tax season. His firm is extremely busy. He was going to bring his partner with him today, Maureen Campbell, who you may get to meet in a subsequent workshop, but he decided to keep her back working at the office while he flew down this morning in his plane, which he pilots. Mr. Baggett was told yesterday he had to reroute that plane because there was a certain somebody named Trump that was coming into the airport in Palm Beach County. He was going to go into Lantana Municipal, and he got rerouted south, but he is here. He has meandered his way here. Judd is a 20-year military veteran, flew Special Forces to the United States of America. 2 tours of duty. Some of his missions he cannot talk about, or all of us would have to disappear. But we don't have to disappear today to listen to Mr. Baggett talk to you about tax consequences should this sale go forward. As I mentioned, it's very important that you understand that. Now, that being said, anyone here who has individual tax advisors should seek them. Some of you are Canadian. What Judd will speak to today will primarily relate to the U.S. tax code, though he will be able to speak generally about the Canadian tax code and the implication for Canadians. Understand, he is not licensed in Canada. He is the United States and specifically practices in the state of Florida, certified public accountant. great deal of experience, as I mentioned, and we're very fortunate to have him here. I want to say, Judd and I have had the privilege to working together on several of these transactions. They are highly specialized transactions. The tax implications are specialized for cooperatives, and as a shareholder in a cooperative, you have certain rights under the U.S. tax code. They have not been changed by the tax code changes. I'm sure someone is going to get up today and say, hey, the tax code changed. How does that change things? I'm going to trump that question and tell you it hasn't changed from the transactions that we have already closed. And one of them is now, this morning or yesterday, got posted on Nextdoor. I'm going to read briefly. The translator is going to be able to, I'm sure, translate all of this beautifully for everyone's friends. This portion probably won't get translated, but I want to encourage everyone to look on the Nextdoor site, and Bonnie's going to figure out another way to send it to you. If you remember, in the workshops, when I started, I guess about a month ago with our first workshop, I mentioned the transaction of Forest Lake Estates. Does everybody remember me mentioning Forest Lake Estates? Yes. Forest Lake Estates was a mobile home community that was sold to ELS when they made an offer for $75 million in 2015, and it closed in 2016, to purchase that resident-owned cooperative. They were a client of mine since inception, for 16 years at the time that they approached my client, Forest Lake Estates, to make their offer of $75 million. It was reported nationally in several publications. One of those publications, articles, is noted on your website. You should read it. You should get a copy. If you don't have a computer, you should get a copy from someone and read it. I'm going to read it briefly. I think it's very important. It says that Forest Lake Estates mobile home community sold to a national real estate investment trust for $75 million, reported by St. Petersburg real estate attorney David Bernstein. Bernstein, with the firm of Adams and Reese, served as legal advisor for the transaction and worked closely with Brett Schroeder, the president of Premier Community Management, Realty and Mobile Home Sales, former management company of the park, who completed the transaction. The sale, Bernstein said, is one of the largest transactions of its kind in the Florida manufactured housing industry. That's the entire industry, not just for a cooperative, but it was at the time the largest single sale in history of a mobile home park in the state of Florida, specifically a resident-owned community. I want to note that that sale for $75 million was for over 1,100 lots. There's 1,168 lots. So the price per lot here is quite higher if you do the math. The sale of Forest Lake Estates was the largest of its type and secured a high return on investment for community shareholders who originally banded together to purchase the mobile home park in 1999. I had helped them buy it in 99. I was the lawyer that helped them buy it and represented them all those years. Forest Lake Estates is a historically resident-owned community that over the years had experienced challenges of shareholder ownership, such as frequent board turnover, disagreement over management, low cash reserve, unfilled vacancies, and an overall long-term clouded vision for the park. None of that would apply here, I don't think. The sale of that community garnered a 94% approval rating from shareholders and successfully recognized their equity at the peak of the market. The transaction closed after nearly 8 months of due diligence and negotiations. That's what it takes. It took 8 months. It marks the largest of its kind, and it goes on to speak about that the Forest Lake residents were able to sell at the peak of the market and make good on their long-term investment. So what you're looking at here now, very similar situation. Forest Lake Estates paved the way for these types of communities. Judd and I had the privilege to work together on that transaction. He's here to talk to you right now about this transaction and how it impacts you. Judd Baggett.
Just a minute. You need to I just have one thing. I want people to be aware we are videotaping this session. If you come up to talk, it will be the back of you. But for everyone who's not here, we will be posting the video online as we have posted the other videos. So if you don't want to be videoed, you're going to have to leave.
Let me say that when we go out to make a presentation somewhere, we always send the best looking CPA that we have. Unfortunately, she wasn't available, so you're going to get me. A couple of things. This is where I'm from, Zephyr Hills. And the water you get here is straight from the well at the city of Zephyr Hills. The water company does a reverse process on it to get the chlorine out, and that's what you get. And it has always been very good water. I'm going to try not to wander too much. Here, can you hear me okay? No. Test. Hold pretty close to it. My name is Judd Baggett. I'm a partner in a CPA firm out of Zephyr Hills, and but we do work all over Florida. Before I start, I would like to recognize military veterans. Any service, any country. So if you would, please stand up if you're a military veteran. Several of you here. Thank you very much for your patience. We all appreciate what you've done. I'm not familiar with your exact tax status here, but I understand that you are a not-for-profit homeowners co-op, and I have dealt with those for some time. Forest Lake is probably the one that's best known. And the one thing that I noticed coming up here is the women here are a lot better looking than the ones in Forest Lake. Now, I'm sorry I can't say that to you guys. You can't cover everything. So, you're in a sale that is pretty unique. I'm going to keep my notes because she has a copy and I don't want to get her too confused here. But what's unique about this sale is that you are a homeowners cooperative, and there is a special tax code called Subchapter T that covers all cooperatives, and they get a special tax treatment. And in a normal corporation, if you sold all the assets of the corporation would have to pay tax on that gain first before any of the shareholders got anything. And then when the money was distributed out to the shareholders, it would be distributed less quite a bit of corporate tax. And then the shareholders would be taxed on it one more time. So you have double taxation in a normal corporate transaction. That's not changing with the new tax law. The tax rate's going to come down a little bit. But a co-op is unique. It has a special feature in it that says if the co-op transacts business for the patrons, which is you own the shares of the co-op. If it transacts a transaction for you, then that money can be passed out of the corporation as a patronage dividend direct to the patrons and does not have to be taxed at the corporate level. So there's a huge difference between the taxation you're facing and the taxation a normal corporation would face. So it's a big advantage for you. And there's even a few more advantages in there that we'll go into. There's numerous IRS rulings that hold that the capital gain from a co-op is considered patronage income from business conducted for the co-op, the shareholders of the co-op. So what's going to happen when you do, if you do go through with the sale, is you're going to get each individual lot owner. The sale is two parts. Someone is going to come in and buy the assets of the co-op first, okay? And then the co-op itself is the one that's going to give you the patronage dividend. You, in essence, are going to be selling your share back to the co-op. So the co-op is the one you're going to be dealing with when it comes time for you to turn your share over. The proceeds will be passed out, as I said, as patronage dividends. And they are subject to tax at your level, at the individual level. But there are some exceptions. If it's been your home for a certain number of years, then you may not owe any tax on it at all. If you do owe tax, it's going to be taxed at a capital gain rate, which is going to be a better tax rate than the ordinary tax rate. And the Canadians, I'll talk a little bit about that in a few minutes.
No, that's fine. No, I'm fine.
You want me to continue in French just to make it easy?
Just, yeah.
Okay.
That's fine.
Wie viel macht bekomme ich für einen Dollar? That's German, I'm sorry. So, the sale of your share for Canadians and for U.S. citizens is considered the sale of an interest in U.S. real estate. And as such, that's deemed to be a capital asset, which does qualify for capital gain treatment as long as you held it long enough. If you held it for more than 1 year, it will qualify for capital gain treatment. If it's less than that, it's still a capital gain, but it's a short-term capital gain, and you don't get the favorable long-term capital gain treatment. When you are taxed on the sale, assuming that, and many of you will have to pay tax on the sale, you're not taxed on the gross amount that you receive. And if you receive, for example, $115,000 and you paid $40,000 for your share, the difference is $75,000. That's what you're going to be taxed on. So you would pay a long-term capital gain on the $75,000 gain that you had. The sale will be reported on a 1099 form, and most of you have gotten many 1099s in your lifetime. This particular one will likely be a 1099-S. In the letter that you got, David pointed out to me this morning, it says it will be issued in January of 2018, and that's not correct. It will be issued in January of the year after the sale. So if the sale takes place this year, you'll get that 1099 in January or February of next year, of 2019. The sale for some people may not be taxable at all. How many of you use this residence here as your principal residence? Oh wow, many of you. Okay. If this has been, you're going to love this part. If this has been your principal residence for 2 out of the last 5 years, the tax, you will pay no tax on the sale. So the gain will be forgiven. Okay.
Thank you.
And fortunately, the new tax law doesn't change that. So you're in the best position of all here. So as long as you've lived here, and this is your principal residence for 2 out of the last 5 years, there's no tax on the gain. You do have to report it on your tax return, because you are going to get the 1099. So you have to report it on your tax return so that the tax return can show IRS that it was the sale of a home and it's not taxable to you. Okay? But it's easy to do. Any taxpayer can do it, and you can probably do it yourself. A couple of special cases. If you inherited your lot, your basis, your tax cost of your lot, if you inherited the lot, is the fair market value on the date of death of the person that you inherited it from. Okay, so if you inherited from a parent, whatever the fair market value was on that particular date, and they may have paid $10,000 for it, but if it was worth $40,000 on the date of their death, that's the value that you inherited at. So that's what you would report on your tax return. Gifted lots. If we have anybody that had a lot gifted to them by somebody, your basis there is the basis of the person that gifted it to you. So you'll have to have an idea of what they paid for the lot, because that's what you're picking up as your basis for the sale. Joint ownership, when you have a joint husband and wife, for U.S. citizens, you only have to get one 1099. It can be done jointly, and then you have, but you have, of course, file a joint tax return. For Canadians, that's not so. Canadians are going to have to file a U.S. tax return for this, and husband and wife have to file separately on their U.S. tax return. Okay, so it makes it a little more inconvenient for you. Canadians. How many Canadians do we have here today? Okay, quite a few. Wow. Okay. Is everybody able to understand me all right? I know Canadians have a different language. Okay, yeah, okay. What's going to happen to you is, because of the U.S. tax laws, is they're going to have to, the co-op will have to withhold 15% of the gross amount of the sale. So if the sale was $100,000, they're going to have to withhold $15,000 from you at the time of the sale. This money is going to be sent to the Internal Revenue Service in the U.S. You're going to get a form that the U.S. people will not get, called an 8288A. And it's a withholding form that shows the Internal Revenue Service how much was withheld from your sale, so that when you file your tax return, you can get some money back, because you probably will not owe that much money. So when you file the U.S. tax return, you're going to get a refund from that. And the 8288 is what proves to IRS what you got. To get the 8288 and file the tax return and the refund, eventually you're going to have to get a taxpayer identification number. And because you'll need that to file your U.S. tax return. You can get this in Canada. We recommend that you get it while you're here in Florida, because every IRS office interprets the rules differently. And boy, we had a hard time with forced legs. Every IRS office wanted different information. So when you are ready to get your ID taxation number, you will have to prove that you need it for some reason. And a good proof will be the closing statement from the sale of your share. And when you show that to the agent that's going to get the number for you, they will be able to use that to get the ITIN number for you. And you will have to have the ITIN before you can file your U.S. tax return, which will be a 1040 NR, non-resident. And virtually all of you will probably get a refund from that. So definitely you're going to want to file that as soon as you can. The 8288s, unlike the 990, the 1099, must be issued within 30 days of the sale. So you will just get a copy of it. You'll get a copy of that form just so you can see what it is. The IRS gets 2 copies, and in theory, they send one back to you and say, okay, now go get your ITIN number. Well, it didn't really work out that way, so we don't know what you're going to get. But it does work in the end. We were able to get everybody sorted out. But again, I would recommend that you try to get the ITIN number while you're down here. And there'll be agents around here. Just Google it on the internet, the ITIN numbers, and there'll be agents around here that can do that for you. Now, I have heard horror stories from Canada where accounting firms that were charging like $2,000 plus to get an ITIN number. And I think that's outrageous. It's a simple form you have to do. We don't do it ourselves, but a lot of firms do them. And to me, a few $100s maybe. But more than that, I'd probably start shopping around. So. You need some time now, or you want to?
Ce qu'on dit que c'est la transaction ici, c'est unique parce que c'est une coopérative. Donc, normalement, une corporation paierait la taxe corporative, ensuite distribue ce qui reste, puis ensuite on paye, nous, personnellement, une taxe par-dessus ça. Le fait que ce soit une coopérative, c'est différent, c'est que l'argent est transféré en tant que dividende, et donc il n'y a pas de taxation, donc on paye seulement, nous, la taxe individuelle à ce moment-là. On a d'autres avantages aussi. La façon que ça fonctionne, c'est que les acheteurs achètent les biens de la coopérative, ensuite il y a la distribution, et ensuite nous, on revend nos parts à la coopérative. C'est comme ça que ça fonctionne. Je vais sauter toute la partie pour les Américains. Ce qu'on dit, c'est que la vente de parts est considérée comme une vente immobilière aux États-Unis, donc c'est assujetti à la taxe de gain de capital. On n'est pas taxé sur le montant total, dans le fond, on est taxé sur la différence entre le montant qu'on a payé pour notre quote-part, qui est de 20 000 dans ce cas-ci, et le 115 000 qui est prévu qu'on va recevoir. Donc, on paye la taxe sur la différence entre les deux. La vente est rapportée sur un formulaire 1099 qu'on va recevoir. Les Canadiens vont recevoir un formulaire additionnel qui est le 82-88A en plus. Le 82-88 est envoyé généralement dans les 30 jours suivant la transaction. Le 1099 va être envoyé en janvier 2019 seulement. La coopérative ici va retenir 15% des montants que vous allez recevoir et ce 15%-là va être remis au gouvernement des États-Unis. Une copie du 82-88 va leur être remis aussi. Maintenant, vous allez pouvoir demander un remboursement de cette taxation-là sur vos impôts au Canada. Vous allez avoir à demander un numéro ITIN ici. C'est un numéro de taxation pour les États-Unis. Ce qu'on recommande, c'est de faire les démarches ici aux États-Unis pour obtenir ce numéro d'identification-là. Ils ont plusieurs exemples. Il y a eu des problématiques de gens qui ont fait des demandes au Canada. Et en plus, c'est qu'ils voulaient le charger beaucoup trop cher. Il y a des gens qui ont été chargés jusqu'à 2 000 $ pour avoir ce numéro-là. C'est un formulaire qui est simple. Ce qu'on dit, c'est que vous ne devriez pas payer plus qu'une centaine, quelques centaines de dollars pour avoir ce numéro-là. Mais faites ces démarches-là à partir d'ici pour ne pas avoir de problème.
That was amazing. And she got that exactly right.
That's what they all say.
It was like I was listening to myself. I'm sorry I went so far. I forgot all about you.
That's fine. I'll do the same later.
I have just a little bit more to go, and then we'll open it up to questions. If the sale is taxable, and this is an important set of facts here, if it is taxable, any improvements that you've made to the lot can be added to the cost of your original share. Okay, not the home, not the home, but if you put in a driveway, for example, or a sidewalk, or some decorative improvements on the lot that you have to pay for, you can add those costs to the cost of your share, and it will reduce the capital gains tax that you have. Any improvements to the home, such as getting your roof repaired, will not qualify. Okay? Because you're not selling the home, you're just selling the real estate involved with the home. Now, interesting point, if you stay here after the sale and rent, and stay here another 2 years, when you sell the home itself, you can take that exemption again and pay no tax on that sale. Okay, so you'll get another exemption at that point. Okay, this basic,
applicable for Canadians, or we don't?
it would not apply to Canadians. Now, adding to the basis does apply to the Canadians.
Okay, so maybe I'll just tell them that.
Okay. That sums up what I had to tell you on the key points of this. There are certain things that have to be done legally to make this work, and David's an expert at it, so I think you're in very good hands there. You want to take a minute for this, and then I'll answer questions.
Ce qu'on dit, c'est que si vous avez fait des améliorations locatives à votre lot, donc toutes les améliorations locatives extérieures, si vous avez rajouté un stationnement, par exemple, ça serait aussi déductible. Donc, votre 20 000 de base, plus les dépenses extérieures. Les dépenses sur la propriété, c'est sûr qu'il n'y a pas de déduction là-dessus.
Thank you. Okay, at this point, I'll be glad to answer any questions that anybody has. And if it's in French, we'll get it translated, and in English, I'll see if I can handle it.
Go ahead and come up to the microphone.
Come up to this
Is it
mic.
on?
I'll get back here out of the way.
Trying to remember my lot.
Okay.
Check, make sure it's,
Testing 1, 2, 3. Okay. Joy Garofalo, lot 764, I think. Anyway, here's my question. If you're on the cusp of the 2 years of living here, if you're on the cusp of the 2 years living here, say you're at
Good question.
23, 22 months, what?
Good question. Excellent question. You get a pro rata portion of that exclusion. So if you were here for 23 out of the 24 months, you would get 23 over 24% of that, so you'd get almost all of it.
Okay.
If you were here for half the time, you'd get half the exemption.
And the date is the closing date?
Yeah, the date of the closing is the date that makes the difference.
Wait a second.
Let's make it, if it's got to do with Americans only, I'll skip it.
This is
I'll
only
let them know.
American.
Yeah, only
They
American.
calculate for the date of closing at 2 years back, right?
Correct, that's correct.
En passant, si c'est une question qui se rapporte seulement aux taxes américaines, on ne va pas traduire. On va attendre que ça se rapporte à nous. Merci.
My name is Bob Hardman, Lot 580. My question is, a capital gain tax different from the income? Will it put me in a different bracket for my income tax?
It can possibly, but probably not, because there is a maximum cap on capital gains tax. So it may raise your other income up into a slightly higher bracket. So it can do that.
One-time deal.
Yeah. That one possibly.
Rains and Oldie, lot 652. If you're over 70 and you sell, and you have 2 names on the share, would it pay for the person who's over 70 to put the share in their name so that the person under 70, it doesn't incur the tax?
No, it won't make any difference. It won't be any advantage to it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sue Kelsey, lot 798. I'm a snowbird, and I own 3 properties in Michigan, so how is this going to affect me?
As far as it being your principal residence?
It's not. I'm a snowbird.
Okay.
I'm only here 5 to
Okay,
6
for
months.
you, it will be a long-term capital gain. If you held it more than a year, you'll get the long-term capital gain rate, which is a lower rate than ordinary income.
What is the lower rate?
A maximum is 20%, but it'll probably be something less than that.
La question est en français.
Can't hear you.
La question est en français. Le numéro ITIN, c'est un pour la vente ou un par part? Comme moi et ma blonde, on a 50% des parts. Est-ce que ça prend 2 numéros ITIN ou un?
Okay, so are they going to need 2 ITIN numbers if they have 2 names on the share?
Good question, yes. For all Canadians, they will each need a separate ITIN number. They will each have to file a U.S. tax return.
OK. Vous allez devoir faire un rapport d'impôt américain chacun, donc ça vous prend un numéro chacun.
OK, merci beaucoup.
Linda Saunders, lot 1143. Linda Saunders, lot 1143. My question is we're technically snowbirds, but I claim this as my full-time residency, and I'm the only name on the share. So what does that do for my husband and I? I'm here over 6 months, and
Okay.
I've had my home over 5 years. Over
Okay,
5
well,
years.
let's address that first, whether or not it's your principal residence. The answer to whether or not it's your principal residence is a fact and circumstance issue with the IRS. So if it were ever challenged, you would have to show the IRS that you lived here more than 6 months out of each year. Okay, and you can do that by showing utility bills. If you have a Florida driver's license, you're in good shape. So.
She may be filing a homestead.
No, I do not.
You do not?
No, I do not file homestead.
Let me just ask one question. Excuse me, do you file homestead in any other state? Are you taking advantage of a homestead in any other state?
I don't think we get homestead anymore. He is.
Well, then chances are then you will not be able to declare this as a principal residence. You own it jointly, correct?
No.
No? All right, I'll talk to you afterward. We'll see if there's a way. Okay?
Thank you.
Great. Guess what? You may be filing for homestead this year.
This is good.
Wait a minute, can we get him, he's got it. Go ahead,
We'll talk
Bob.
after.
Just 1 second, because he's,
Bob Turner, 1187. Regarding the value of our share when we bought it, okay, what about the people that bought a home here and the share came along with the home?
You need to know what the value of the share was at the time that you bought that home. And I would think the office here can probably give you a pretty good number. But you do need to separate the two.
we will try to figure out, I'm not quite sure how, but we will try to figure out years and what the value of the share was for years, and we will do that through the co-op. That's probably my summer project.
I was hoping in regards to taxes it would have been free.
No, you want it to be more. You want it to be for more than, so that there's no capital gains, right?
Rocky Torado, lot 1285. If you are two people owning the share and not married, right of survivorship, we've been here, it's our homestead, how is that 1099 as handled? Do we get two separate ones or what?
I would give you two separate ones, yes.
Okay.
And you would each report it on separate tax returns.
And how is that divided then?
50-50 unless you have a different division.
Oh.
And you can determine the division.
Oh, we determined on closing the division?
Well, I would do it before that, so the numbers on the 1099 will come out correct.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, 1713. I'm not a crook, but regarding the income tax Canadian, I try my best. So I don't know if you have an answer, but I like to know if it's something connecting income tax American and income tax Canadian.
Yes, and that's a good question. There is. There's a treaty between the U.S. and Canada on taxes. And what happens is if you pay tax on this sale in the U.S., and there will be some tax on it that you'll have to pay, it'll be on your U.S. tax return, the Canadians are going to give you credit for that tax.
Okay.
So you're not going to pay a double tax on it. You will get credit. And the same thing happens in the U.S.
Ok, vas-tu traduire, s'il te plaît, Nathalie? J'ai bien compris. S'il te plaît, merci.
La question se posait si les États-Unis et le Canada se parlent. La réponse est oui, il y a une entente Canada-US, mais comme on a dit tantôt, vous allez payer la taxe ici aux États-Unis et vous allez être crédité au Canada.
I don't know, one of you guys go.
Louis saying that, well,
We gotta pull it up. Thank you. We can't hear you.
that a little better?
That's better.
I don't know, bro. I might have a different problem. We're here 6 months out of the year, the snowbirds. My wife is a Floridian. I am a Vermonter. We homestead in Vermont. Now, how is that going to affect us down here?
If you homestead in Vermont, by default, IRS would say that's your principal residence. Okay. Now, if you live down here for 10 months anyway.
20 years.
Okay, but I'm talking about how much time. You live down here for 10 months out of each year?
6 months.
Yeah, 6 months, probably won't do it since you're homesteading up there. But you can talk to your tax preparer, and if you can convince them, they might give it a shot. But you say your wife isn't Floridian.
Yes, she is.
Yeah, that would give you a little bit of ammunition.
She votes here.
All right. I wouldn't give up, I guess is what I would say. I'd give it my best shot.
John Van Putten, lot 878. You mentioned excuse me. You mentioned that if make an improvement to our lot, I just paid a lot of money to have my driveway done yesterday.
how do I report that as far as adding that price to the lot, to the share?
You save that receipt, and say it was $3,000 you paid, then you're gonna add that to the cost of your share. If you paid $40,000 for the share, now you're gonna have a $43,000 share.
Dick Post, lot 377. And my question will probably concern a lot of other people that are in a similar case of me. And it's concerning your paragraph 5 for U.S. citizens. Now, I have the homestead. I have a Schedule D. I would like to know the mechanics, because you're saying that I won't have to pay any taxes.
Right.
Right? And I would like to just, instead of going to HR Block, I would like to have you, is it with?
Okay, I'll fly in here to do your tax return.
I usually do my own because I don't have anything, you know.
You can do your own. Do you use software to do it?
No, I just take a 1099 and fill it in.
Okay, you might want to invest in some software this year. Something like TurboTax. Yeah, it doesn't cost very much. But that way they can do it automatically and there won't be any question on it. But to answer your question, your 1099 is going to be reported just like any other 1099. Okay, so it will go on Schedule D,
right.
One of the schedules that supports Schedule D. Right. But there's going to be a special code that you put in to note that it's your personal residence. And once you've got that code in there, it's not going to show any gain. But it will report it to IRS.
Because, you know, on the Schedule D, you have certain, I know how it works for stocks, you know, you buy high, sell low, or whatever. You have two numbers,
right.
And then you have the gain.
Right.
But for this asset...
Okay, stop right there. Two numbers, and then you show the gain on the far right. That's what you normally see.
Right.
This time you're going to have two numbers, as before, but nothing's going to show on the third column.
They'll be the same number then, 0. Or
it'll be a 0.
A 0 then.
A 0.
So that'll stem from the 1099-S.
Yeah, it doesn't stem from the 1099-S, because the 1099-S is just for the sale of a piece of real estate, sale of U.S. interest. So the IRS doesn't, they assume it's going to be taxable. Only because it's been your principal residence do you not have to pay tax on it. And the software will put a little code in there that'll attach to the tax return.
But I don't see why I should have to get TurboTax. I mean, I should
if you want to do it,
that I can.
You can put on their sale of residence. You can write it in, and they'll buy that.
Okay. All right. So that, I mean, this should be the case of a lot of other people that are, you know, with homestead.
And the IRS is going to probably buy that.
Okay. Thank you.
Ross, Hill, lot 478. My question is, if I invest that money that I receive in another community, is that totally tax deductible?
No. Now, let me clarify it a little more. There is an exchange called a 1031 exchange, where if you own a piece of investment property, you can sell it through an escrow agent and buy another piece of property, and you defer paying the tax on it. But this is, you're living here, so this is your home.
Correct.
So that will not apply here. So you will not be able to defer the gain on it that way.
Okay, thank you.
Bonjour, en français s'il vous plaît. In French?
Oui.
J'ai payé ma maison 22 000 en 2012. La chaire valait à ce temps-là 30 000 $. Comment vais-je déduire la part de ma chaire pour le calcul de l'impôt?
What we're saying is he paid $22,000 for his home, including the share, in 2012, and the share was worth $30,000 at that time. So how is he?
You can't claim more than you pay for it. So,
Tu peux pas réclamer plus que ce que tu as payé.
was most of the value in the share or in the mobile home?
Si le plus gros de la valeur était dans la share ou dans la maison mobile.
J'ai à l'office, puis ils vont dire qu'il n'y a pas de montant sur la share.
D'où tu prends ton montant de 30 000? D'où tu prends ton montant de 30 000 de 2012?
Je le sais quand je vais rentrer ici. Allez.
Ah, si tu achetais un terrain vacant en 2012, ça valait 30 000. Okay, okay. So what we're saying here is he was told that the reality was in 2012 that lots were worth $30,000 if you bought an empty lot. So he's wondering how he's going to proceed with it.
It probably is a moot point because even if he does the 22,000, he probably put in additional amounts that would be deductible. He's probably going to come down to zero. You know, even if he says 20, you probably put in money into the carport, into the sidewalks, into all of those things. No? Nothing?
No, not outside, no.
Okay. It's still going to be, you know.
Wouldn't it be evaluated at 30,000 if we bought into 2011 or 2012?
I'm not sure it was.
Let me answer the question. Our IRS would not allow you to use the 30,000 because that's not what you paid. What you need to do, and I'll give you a suggestion here, you paid 22,000 for it. I would assume 2,000 for the mobile home and 20,000 for the lot. For the share. And 20,000 for the share. But you know it was something higher.
2,000 for the house.
Right.
20,000 for the share.
Yes. IRS is not in the question.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Tout le monde a compris, dans le fond, dans son cas, il aurait payé 22 000 pour la share et la propriété, la maison, et avec la déduction de 20 000, donc il aurait payé 20 000 pour sa share, 2 000 pour la maison mobile, puis il n'y a pas personne qui va remettre ça en question.
Hi, I'm Joan Massimero, lot 912. All the capital improvements that got put into the buildings, new roofs, air conditioners, fix the roads, do we get any of that as a deduction from our total amount?
You will not get any of that as a deduction for your share sale. Okay, but when you sell the home, if it's a taxable transaction, when you sell the home, you can add all of that stuff to it.
Well, I'm talking about what the co-op put in as a corporation in order to maintain the clubhouses. They had to put new roofs, new air conditioners. Would each shareholder get a part of that as an expense?
You're going to get that in your pro rata share of your patronage dividend. So you're going to get whatever's left over, you're going to get a share of that. And that will include all of that.
Will that be in the paperwork again?
Probably not, because the gain on that will be calculated on the co-op's tax return.
Oh, okay. So we don't get anything.
No.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Dans le fond, ce qu'on dit, c'est que les améliorations locatives que vous avez faites sur la propriété vont être déductibles quand vous allez vendre la maison, et non pas au moment de la vente de la share.
Good morning, Sergio, 855. I'd like to know, because I'm a Canadian snowbird, when I came here to buy a house, I went around a lot of places before I bought here. Would my travel expenses be added to the cost this year?
No. It would if it was a business transaction. But if for your personal residence, it's considered personal, so that would not add to it.
It would be the same with the house?
Yes.
OK. Serge a demandé il dit quand il a acheté ici, il a voyagé beaucoup, il s'est promené beaucoup, il a visité d'autres places. Il demandait si ses dépenses de voyagement étaient déductibles. La réponse, c'est si ça avait été une transaction commerciale, c'est possible. Dans ce cas-ci, c'est une transaction personnelle. La réponse est non.
My name is Sylvia Golder, lot 1235. My share is in my name and my daughter's name. When the 1099 comes, can I just take full responsibility for all those taxes and leave her out of it?
The best thing to do would be to change that title before the sale takes place. And put it in your name. And David can help you with that.
Thank you.
Because what the corporation will likely do is whatever name is on the share are the names that they're going to put on the 1099s. So if you change it beforehand, then you'll take care of that problem.
And we will be having workshops, and the buyer will be paying for all of that as part of the closing costs. So everybody could change, you could change the name on your share prior to the closing, so that at no cost to you. If you change it right now, it'll be $400? $250. So you would want to wait until after the vote, and then we will be having workshops to change names on shares.
La question à Sylvia se rapportait aux noms qui sont sur la share. Donc, elle, sa share est à son nom personnel et au nom de sa fille. Elle demande au moment où est-ce que le 1099 va être émis, qu'est-ce qu'elle devrait faire. La réponse, c'est qu'il faut attendre le vote. Ne pas faire ces transactions-là tout de suite parce que vous allez payer les frais. Donc, elle va devoir prendre la share à son nom si elle veut être taxée, juste elle taxée sur la transaction. Ce qu'on recommande de faire, c'est d'attendre le vote. Si le vote passe, c'est la corporation qui nous achète, qui a accepté de payer les frais, même les frais personnels de chacun. Donc, vous allez mettre le nom qui est le plus avantageux au niveau de taxation pour vous. On fait ça après que le vote soit passé.
We're done. Looks like it.
Oh, hold on one second. Hold on one second. I know you want to come up and answer questions. So we're just going to launch early. Come on up. Before you do, I want to clarify one thing, and particularly for the video, anyone who may watch this later or be watching from home. There will be an opportunity, if this vote goes forward, after the date of that vote, for anyone that wants to change how their share is titled, to do so. We will have a workshop that will deal with the entire share redemption process, which is part of the sale of the cooperative. We're not going to do that before the vote, because if the vote doesn't go through, that would have been a complete waste of time. What we're doing now is giving the basics of the transaction and to make certain that all of your questions can be answered. But if, for example, we've had a couple questions where one person talked about husband and friend that are on the share, another talked about a daughter or son on a share. If you wanted, we've talked about this before, take someone off the share or add someone to the share, there'll be an opportunity to do that. It can impact your tax situation, and one of the reasons you do it is for that. For example, if you had your child or children on the share, you may not want them to get the 1099. We talked about that before. They may not want the 1099. That's reportable tax to them. You may have put a child or children or an heir on the share because you figured if anything happened to you, you wanted to make sure it went to them, right? Make it easier. But now, nothing's happening to you except you would be getting a big check. They don't intend to share in that money, right? Or you don't intend for them to share in that money. And so they come off the share potentially to allow the reporting to be exclusively yours. You will pay the tax, right? Or you will take the deduction and not have to pay tax, as Judd has explained, if it in fact works out that way for you because it's your residence. So there is ample opportunity for that. If you're going to, consider doing something like that, rest assured that there'll be time for workshops and discussions regarding those types of issues. For now, it's just getting the basics of the tax consequence to you. All right? We do have at least one more question. Ed, are you coming up with a question? No? All right. I want to allow any other questions. Do you want to translate that? Okay, we're going to translate that, and then we have one more question in the back.
Dans le fond, ce que l'avocat voulait faire, c'est clarifier pour tout le monde, c'est que vous allez avoir l'opportunité, après la date de vote, pour effectuer n'importe quel changement sur vos titles, sur vos shares. Il va y avoir un workshop spécial exprès pour ça. Donc, vous pouvez soit enlever ou rajouter quelqu'un ou changer le nom de la share, dépendant de l'impact que ça va avoir, l'impact fiscal que ça va avoir chez vous. Oui. They're asking when we expect that these workshops would occur. Would it be before we're leaving?
No. Well, I don't know when people are leaving, but the workshop would not occur until after the vote. And the vote will not occur until likely the end of April. So you know when you're leaving and when you're, but if we do a workshop and you're not here, there will be a letter that will go out that will explain the situation. It will also be taped, and perhaps you can figure a way, Bonnie, to make that available to people on the internet. So there'll be opportunity, even if you're not here, to get the benefit of the workshop information. But the workshop, again, is not going to take place unless and until there is a vote to go forward, because otherwise it would be a waste of time, what we would call moot. There's no reason to do it unless there is going to be a sale of the community. So we'll do it after the vote, if in fact the vote goes forward. Okay?
Dans le fond, ce qu'on dit, c'est que le vote n'est pas prévu avant la fin avril. Donc, on ne sera pas ici pour les workshops, mais les workshops vont être enregistrés. Ça va être affiché sur le site web de la coopérative. Vous allez aussi avoir la documentation qui va vous être envoyée à la maison avec toutes les explications de ce que vous pouvez faire et comment procéder.
Mr. Bennett, Tom Scarpaccio at 122. I have a question not pertaining to me, but to my deceased brother's family. My brother passed away this past year. He left his home to his 5 children, but they all agreed that they wanted to go to one of the children. Is there a tax liability there for them?
There will not be a tax.
Excuse me 1 minute, Mr. Bennett. Do they need a death certificate?
They probably will need a death certificate.
Okay.
But what happens when you inherit something is the inheritance is not going to be taxable. So it will not be taxable to any of them, and they can give their shares to the one person with no tax effect.
So my understanding to you, there'll be no tax liability on my nieces and nephews.
That's correct.
Thank you very much, sir.
It's all yours.
My name is Jim McNamara, Lot 912. When we all purchased our residences, the share prices were different amounts.
Right.
Probably Bonnie is there a way to find out, to break it down, share versus the home, because our tax bill and everything is kind of like one amount.
Right.
In order to deduct that from our capital gain.
We're just going to have to do that.
Yeah, she'll be able to break it down.
We'll have to do that and just have try to historically come up with a list by years, I guess.
Donc la question, c'est quand il a acheté sa propriété, ou on a tout acheté notre propriété à différents temps, ou est-ce que c'était évalué différemment. Donc l'Office va produire une liste qui va donner l'historique de la valeur des shares pour qu'on puisse prendre des déductions conformément avec ce qu'on avait entendu au moment de notre achat.
The values. Raise the values as much as possible.
I have no liability for that, right?
No, of course not, Bonnie.
I don't want to go to jail.
We come visit you, Bonnie.
Pourrais-tu avoir un vote anticipé pour le départ au début avril?
Ben ça va être la procuration.
They're asking if there can be an anticipated vote prior to people leaving.
Yeah.
That'll be proxy? Is that what it's going to be?
Yes.
We expect to have the proxies out second, third week in March, something like that.
And those will be mailed to whatever address that is in
Okay,
there.
and I'm gonna say this a million times. Make sure the office has your correct address of where you are going to be. When you leave, make sure you tell Debbie you are leaving and you want to change your address. Make sure we have an accurate phone number if we get your mail back. We don't want to lose any of you in this process, and if you don't leave that information with the office, we won't be able to fix things and help you.
Dans le fond, les procurations devraient être postées dans la 2e ou la 3e semaine de mars. Donc, vous allez avoir une opportunité de voter avant votre départ, dépendant de votre date de départ. Assurez-vous que l'information que l'Office a vous concernant dans ces dates-là, que ce soit précis, qu'on vous poste ça ici, si vous êtes ici, que vous puissiez en profiter. Et quand vous partez, assurez-vous d'aviser l'Office, puis revérifier vos numéros de téléphone en même temps, si jamais le courrier revient, qu'on soit capable de vous rejoindre.
Okay. We're going to allow a second question for half an hour. If anybody wants to leave at this point in time, they can, but we'll allow a second question for.
Si vous avez une deuxième question, ça va être permis parce qu'il nous reste environ une demi-heure encore. S'il y en a qui veulent partir, vous pouvez partir.
Quiet. We can't hear. Please be quiet.
Would you mind addressing the part about the personal residence line, paragraph 5, I believe it is?
Wait till everybody.
It seems to me like I'm selling my share.
Just hang on. Just hang on. Okay, people, please be quiet. We can't hear, and we want to hear this question.
Okay, right now, please. He asked a good question, and I don't have the letter to be referring to, but okay, for U.S. citizens, if the lot was used as your personal residence, you may be able to avoid tax on the entire sale using the exemption for the sale of a personal residence. His question, which was a good one, is how do I separate that from my home? I'm not selling the house, I'm just selling the land. The IRS has a specific regulation on this that specifically says the sale of a share in a homeowner's co-op does qualify as your home, even if you stay there after the sale. Okay. So it's going to be two separate issues. And 2 years later, you can sell the home and take the exemption again, if you stay there.
Sue Kelsey, lot 798. Say I paid $20,000 for my lot and my share. My house might have been only worth $1,000. When I pulled the carpet up, you could see daylight. So floor joists, windows, doors, roof, siding. That doesn't include in the share, but I also put in a carport, a cement driveway, landscaping, irrigation. Is that counted?
That last group of items which you did to the land itself, that you can add to the cost of the lot.
But not the carport?
Yeah, the carport you can.
And the shed?
Not the carport itself.
Okay.
The driveway, yes.
The driveway, the sidewalk, the landscaping, the irrigation?
Yes.
The pump?
Yes.
Pump the water?
That'll stay in the land, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Louis Samuel on 552. It was mentioned that we could take our name off the share. Now, if I took, like myself, I'll talk about myself because I don't know how many other people are involved. I would take my name off the share. My wife is a resident of Florida. We do stay here at least 6 months out of every year for the last 20 years. Would she be under the short or the long?
Oh, you'll be under the long, no question.
She would be under the, thank you very much.
It'll be long-term capital gain, for
That's
sure.
all.
So that even with you on there, it's still going to be a long-term capital gain.
Yeah, well, that's good. Thank you.
Je vais le dire en français parce que c'est un peu plus compliqué. Est-ce que vous avez une idée de combien de temps va prendre le dépouillage de vote?
Do we have an idea how long it takes to count the votes?
Approximately.
Well, it'll be in the same meeting that the vote is cast, so an hour or so?
No, many days?
How many days?
The same days?
Same day.
How do you get the votes? There's no value, you don't match the signatures with.
Yeah, we do all
Yeah,
that.
no, we do all that, we do all that. We
Okay,
do
I think
that.
that's the question.
We'll be matching them as they come in. If they're wrong, we'll send them back out to get re-executed.
Make sure they're
Okay?
not seen.
But when they go into the voting box, they'll be correct.
OK. OK. L'authentification des votes va se faire à mesure que les votes rentrent. S'il y a quelque chose qui n'est pas correct, ça va être retourné à l'individu pour les corrections. Et le compte des votes se fait un soir, tout dans la même soirée. Ça prend ensuite à peu près 1 heure. On s'assure qu'on authentifie la documentation. Ensuite, on met le vote.
Est-ce qu'il va y avoir des témoins de chaque côté? Oui, non?
Are we going to have witnesses from both sides? Well, people
Yes,
for,
no.
people against,
No,
example.
we're not, this isn't a contest.
Are you sure nobody gonna?
No,
No? Okay, good.
We'll have the CPA will be there with me.
It's okay.
We'll have a board representative who will count the votes. Votes are final.
It's okay.
Okay.
Donc, l'avocat est présent, le comptable est présent et un représentant du board qui sont présents lors du dépouillement des votes.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
J'ai une question sur le point 5. OK? Le point 5, parle de... pour être admissible à titre de non-résident, vous devez, parce que c'est le point 5, je ne le répéterai pas, là, mais je ne vois pas le formulaire 8840. Si on remplit le formulaire 8840, on n'a pas à produire de rapport d'impôt, puis c'est pas inscrit.
Je comprends pas de ta question.
Quand on remplit le formulaire 8840, là, on n'a pas, parce qu'on accepte toujours, hein, on fait le calcul sur les 3 dernières années, puis on accepte toujours le coût, puis on doit remplir un formulaire d'impôt, un formulaire 8840 pour pas être obligé de faire une déclaration d'impôt aux États-Unis. Puis là, c'est pas indiqué sur ça.
C'est parce que le 88-40, tu déclares que tu n'as pas de revenus. Là, tu vas déclarer que tu en as eu.
Oui, mais il devrait être indiqué comme de quoi, parce que là, comme il en parle là, on doit produire un rapport d'impôt.
Ben oui, tu vas devoir produire un rapport d'impôt. He's asking why you're not talking about the 8840 form. And I think because the 8840 form for us is we're declaring we're non-residents and we didn't earn any money. So that's why that's being replaced.
Different issue. You'll still need to file that form. Okay, you'll get 2 forms. You'll get 8828 plus. They still need to file that.
Tu vas recevoir le 8828 qui va être une déclaration d'impôt aux États-Unis. Là-dessus, on a dit tantôt qu'il y avait une retenue de 15 %.
Oui.
Puis ensuite, ça devient déductible d'impôt au Canada. Puis il va falloir que tu remplisses ton 8840 quand même. Mais à ce moment-là, tu vas déclarer que oui, tu as eu des revenus.
OK.
Puis là, la suite, c'est ton rapport d'impôt US qui est le 8828.
8828, OK.
Yeah.
Mais t'as peu, là. Oui, t'as peu.
Le 88-40, on le fait pour ne pas payer d'impôts, mais on est plus que 183 jours parce que ça s'étale sur 3 années. Est-ce que ça veut dire qu'à ce moment-là, il faut faire aussi un rapport d'impôt ou on fait le 88-40, c'est un ou l'autre?
Tu vas recevoir un 8828 qui va déclarer que tu as fait des revenus ici. Il va falloir que tu remplisses des impôts ici.
Donc, je fais les impôts ici.
Puis tu fais ton 88-40 quand même. Ton 88-40, là, tes 3 montants ensemble, c'est pour déclarer que tu es non-résident. Okay. Si jamais tu dépassais sur tes 3 années, tu serais imposable tout d'un coup ici.
OK. Donc, je fais 88-40 et les rapports d'impôts.
Oui.
Rena, 1251, if you have improvements like irrigation or something to the lot, do you need receipts or photographs, something?
Technically, you need receipts, but IRS doesn't really argue a lot about those. if you don't have receipts, I would take pictures, just in case.
On parle des améliorations, si jamais, par exemple, madame elle a un système d'irrigation qu'elle voudrait rajouter dans ses améliorations locatives, on demande si elle est obligée d'avoir des reçus. Ce qu'il dit, c'est que généralement, les impôts vont accepter. Si tu n'as pas de reçu, ça fait plusieurs années que ça a été fait. Si tu prends au moins des photos, là, ça va être quand même une dépense acceptable.
Thank you, Jesus.
Okay. Everybody, thank you very much. Judge Hackett, thank you. Thank you, please, translator. Everyone, appreciate you being here. There's another meeting this afternoon if you wish to come back. Appreciate it. Take care. Further information to follow.
As everyone's leaving, I'm just wanting to remind you, and you must all realize now how important it is that everyone vote.